What's up, all you cool kids? This is Daisy Collins of TsunamiRose.net coming at you with a tutorial video here for my craft room in Las Vegas, Nevada. Normally I bring you guys craft with me videos and process videos. Today I'm coming at you with a tutorial. I have basically made these journals live on my channel, and a lot of people have asked me how I made the cover, this patchwork fabric that I like to use. So I'm going to try and show y'all how to do this. You can use your sewing machine to go ahead and kind of like embroider all over the fabric, or you can choose not to. And you know, they're both a look, they're both a choice. Either way you do it, this is how you make this fabric in order to get this look, right? So let me put this off to the side. There are videos on how to make this project here, but mine is going to be specifically for how to make it into a junk journal cover and specific tips for junk journalers. So that's why mine's a little bit different. So what you're going to start with, what I like to start with for this project, are pieces of scrap fabric that I have cut into strips. These are all my scraps because I actually cut them up. I cut these from bed sheets. So I make my patchwork fabrics from bed sheets that I find at the thrift shop, even some that I've owned over my life. Sometimes, like this one right here, this one was literally in my mom's backyard for I don't know how long. I don't remember using this as a child, but it was in my mom's backyard in a plastic bag. So I take these strips. It doesn't really matter what size strips you start with. But what you want to do is you want to have at least like 3" by 3" squares, nothing smaller than 3" and nothing larger than 6. So see, like this one is about what is this, 1, 2, 3, this is almost 4 or 5 inches. So that one's good, but it's only 2 inches wide, so that's great. So you want to have your cover showing a couple of different fabrics. You don't want this to be one square and then this another square. You want to have a nice variety of fabric, so that's why I use smaller, tiny pieces like this. Of course, also realize that this piece of fabric is also going to shrink down in the final product. So these two fabrics are probably about the same size, but they shrink down a little bit because we do have some seams to work with. And so you want to make sure that your pieces are not too small. Of course, there are things as tiny patchwork, but this is not the tiniest of patchwork. Okay, so once you've gone ahead and have your fabric all nice and cut up into different strips, squares, and rectangles, what you're going to do is you're going to start to match them up. So I get this fabric right here, and I'm going to use a different fabric. I don't want to use the same fabric to match it with. See, that one is, these are a little bit too different, so I'm not going to use that. Maybe this one here. They are a little bit different in size, as you can see, but for the most part they are a good match. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these two together, and what you want to do is you want to sew them with the right sides of the fabric facing each other. And I just rip my fabric. I don't really cut it. A lot of people who make these quilts, they'll cut it all perfectly. I don't have time, so I just rip my fabric to size. It doesn't really make a difference in the end. If it does, it doesn't matter for junk journals. Okay, so right sides of the fabric facing each other. I am going to sew it with my sewing machine. I have my tension set to 2. My straight stitch is set to default settings, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that means I'm going to start sewing a 1/4 inch from the side here. you could iron them. So I'm going to go ahead and iron them. I have an iron off to the side, and I'm going to do basically the same thing, except I'm just going to take one small step and iron real quick. So that's what I'm saying. One day I'll sit here and put all these together, and then the next day I'll come back and I decide I'm okay ironing, so I'll spend quite a while ironing, which is also why I say this project it's not for the weak of heart, and that's also why I do things in like batches. Like one day, like I said, one day I'll sew, one day I'll iron. Is essentially how it all goes. So I'm pressing all the fabrics basically going to the right, so you could, so that all the seams are one way, one side. Okay, and you want to be careful and choose more fabrics that are more on the cotton side than on the polyester side. And you can definitely, after you start purchasing bed sheets, so they all have a tag, but you want to pick more cotton fabrics because polyester fabrics, when you put them under heat with the iron, they'll shrink. Anyways, okay, so now let's do the next step, which is going to be, and I'm using green thread just so you guys can see where it is that I'm sewing, but honestly you should use a beige, a baby pink, anything pastel, anything white, beige, that will kind of blend in with the fabrics, because in the end it does end up showing just a tiny bit, but that's just a little advice. Okay, so now you see I have these 1x1 squares, right? So now we're going to make them 2x2s. So I see that these two are basically the same size, so I'm going to sew these together along right here. I'm not really worried that this side right here is just a tiny bit uneven. If you can see, it's just the tiniest bit uneven. But I'm not worried about that. Here you can, you know, start cutting off these strings here. Anyways, they all come off in the end. Okay, so let's sew these two together right here. They're all different fabrics, so that's fun. And you see this seam right here? I like to sew with the seams facing down, so that way when I sew, I don't have to worry about, oh, is something gonna be lifting the opposite side, and then it does this thing. Maybe I should even show you what that looks like, because it is fixable. It's really not the biggest deal. I'll show y'all. I will show y'all. Let me get this sewn up here. See, I started too fast. See, that's what happens when you start too fast. That is exactly what happens. See? I got too excited. 1 second. And that'll happen to you. If you start sewing too quickly, maybe that's just my sewing machine. I don't know. If I start sewing too quickly, especially on a corner like that, on fabric, maybe it's a little too thin. I don't know. But I need to sew a little bit slower. So 1 second. I think it's gonna keep sewing the same point, and I don't know why, but I'm just gonna move it along. It's not really a technical type of thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that's one of them done. Let's see. You see right here it's a little uneven, so what you could do is you could splurge on a set of quilt rulers if you really feel like you're going to do this for a while. And I actually sell these pieces of patchwork fabric, so for me it was worth it to invest. Get a cutting mat, get a rotary cutter, and if you don't want to splurge on quilt rulers, I understand. It took me a long time to decide that I wanted to splurge on quilt rulers. And so before I did splurge on quilt rulers, I used my Sizzix. You know those plates that come with your Sizzix? Let me show you. I actually have a small plate here somewhere. I thought I did. I saw it earlier. Where did I put it? Okay, I'll show you on this one. the Sizzix plates that come with your Big Shot, the big one or the small one. I like the large one for a couple of steps ahead, but the smaller one will work for things like this if you don't have a quilt ruler. It is an awesome thing to have. So you see now I evened it out because it was a little uneven. Even right here I can even this one out. It's not really the most necessary thing to do, but if you're bored. I like to use my seam as the straight line, and then I even it out with the seam. Like that. Again, this could be something, another step I do in between all the other steps is evening them out like that. It can be a little therapeutic at times, and other times it hurts my hands. So that's why I have, like I said, my quilts in different processes and different steps of the process. Okay, so you can even them out like that. See, this one's a little too uneven. I would like to even this out right here. Right here. And let me just do this side too. Again, I use my seam as a straight line, and then I go from there. Okay, this one's already pretty even, and this one's already pretty even. Okay, cool. So, I did have these other squares that I made. I didn't iron them, so hang on 1 second. Iron this again with the seam to the right, so that way they're all facing the same direction. And there's other types of quilts that I also want to, quilt techniques I want to try. Also, of course, doing it patchwork, so that way I don't have to do anything even. There's some quilt techniques that I like. The ones where it doesn't really matter if things are even or not, and it doesn't matter where seams add up. So basically, crazy quilts and scrap quilts are what I like to try out. Just because, again, I don't have to worry about anything being even. So here my seam is facing down, so that way when I sew this way, I don't have to worry about this lifting up. But okay, so now I have these pieces here. I'm going to iron them again with the fabric going to the right on all of them. It's really not that hard to do as you go along. Some days I don't feel like ironing, some days I do. Okay, so now we have these blocks right here. So now we could try and figure out how these are going to go together. Obviously we need another square here or so. See, that would have been good right here. Let me sew this right here. So now now we got 1 by 1, then we got the 2 by 2. And now we're going to do 2 by 2 by 2 on this one. When normally you would want to add another 4 by 4. But you know what? That's okay. Here we're going to add another 2 by 2 to here. This one we're going to add 1 by 1. It just, whatever you have that kind of matches. Actually, let me put it on this side because this fabric is over here already. So that way it makes it a little bit easier. Are they even? Oh, okay, see, they're slightly uneven. So let me make this, I just noticed, let me make this a little bit more even. So this is where this trick right here comes into play, where you use this as a ruler to cut this evenly. Now I have splurged and I have invested in quilting products for when I make this, because I actually do make this quite often for different different themes and such. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my large quilt ruler that I bought. I can't remember how long ago now. Had it for a couple of months. And I bought this awesome ruler. I'll leave everything in the description box below, as well as a comment if you do want to kind of up your game a little bit. If I used the Sizzix thing for a long time before I invested in this, to be honest with you. But now I love it, and I definitely would recommend it. If you are going to be cutting fabric, it is awesome. It is just awesome. I could have used this even when I was just making junk journals from fabric, just regular fabric. Could have been very useful. Okay, so now I've evened that strip out, as you can see. And now this light, hang on, this light from my window. Oh my gosh. The sun is going down, y'all. Okay. And it's still there. Okay, whatever. Okay, so this one right here is actually pretty even, except for right here, which you could obsess about. So let's obsess about it. Of course, this would be easier if this was this way. That's why I love it. This cutting board and the rotary cutter were one of the first things I really invested in when I started making my journals from fabric. I started going live and people were like, hey, you should really get a rotary cutter. And I was like, okay. Because 2 years ago when I used to make my journals, it was a lot different than how I make them now. So that's good. Okay, I'm going to even this out, and then we're going to put that together with the other strip. Now, the size that you make your covers will tell you how big you need to make your piece of fabric here, your patchwork. All of my pieces of patchwork fabric are all the size of this. So this is what my end goal size of fabric would be. That's what I work with normally. That'll will depend on you. So here I'm gonna sew these together again, right sides of the fabric together. Okay. So now here is our patchwork. These two fabrics are together, which I didn't want to do, but you know what, it's fine. For the demo, I will live. You do want to keep an eye out on that. Okay, so I'm ironing it flat. So y'all can see the patchwork we've created here. So see right here. Okay, perfect. So my seams here are all down, down. This one's up, but it's fine. This one's up. And right here, this seam was supposed to be facing up, but it's facing down. So what we do is I just take my little scissors here, my little fabric scissors, and I just cut that fabric until the seam goes back up, and the part that's sewn down is just sewn down, and that's fine. But it'll be less lumpy of a finished product. So that is my little patchwork, and that is how you get started with the patchwork fabric. And of course you go in and you even this out to your liking, and then I'm going to show you how I make this into a cover, right? So that's the the ultimate goal, is to make this fabric into a cover. So let me even this out here and I will show y'all how I do that. Okay, so we turn this into paper using the magic of HeatnBond, right? So definitely want to get this off the table because it will warp if you add heat to this. Okay, I'm going to use parchment paper. Let me tell you why. I'm going to use parchment paper because the HeatnBond has two sides to it. One side is shiny and the other side is matte. So the shiny part is what has the glue on it. So basically we're adding a bunch of glue to the back of this fabric so we can then adhere this fabric to paper. Okay, so we're adding glue, and this is my preferred adhesive of choice. This is iron-on adhesive. And so when I iron on my fabric onto this, there's parts of this up here that have glue on it that I don't have fabric to cover. So I don't want that glue to get on my ironing mat, and I don't want that glue to get on my iron. So that's why I use parchment paper. Parchment paper will catch the extra glue. So you want to, again, iron the shiny part of the HeatnBond to your patchwork, to the back of your patchwork fabric, right? Because that's what we want. We want the back to have glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my iron on the hottest setting that I can, and I'm going to start. I'm going to place the iron down on the paper, on the HeatnBond, for about 30 seconds, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift and I'm going to move it to the next spot. I'm not going to slide over to the next spot, okay? That is because this adhesive is now liquid, and so if you move your iron around, the adhesive will slide around on the HeatnBond. So you want to pick up and place on the next place that you want to melt the adhesive. And again, you want to leave it on there for about 30 seconds, no more than that, because you can singe your fabric. I have singed some of my fabric and it just turns like a light golden brown. You kind of toast your fabric, so that's why you want to pick it up every 30 seconds and move to a new spot, and you can always go back and put it back on for another 30 seconds. You will be able to see that your fabric will be more visible than over here where the glue has not melted. Your fabric will be visible from the back of the HeatnBond, and then you can rest assured that you made a nice bond. Now the HeatnBond does kind of leave a small dotted matrix on your fabric, so just be aware that that is normal. That is normal. Okay. So again, I'm getting the HeatnBond here melted. It's almost done. Okay, so now that I'm done adhering the HeatnBond to here, I don't want to touch it yet because it's actually hot, and so you will hurt yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off my table and kind of wave it around so it cools down, and then I can handle it. And now what we can do is just to make sure that this is all nice and glued down. We are going to now iron on the front of the fabric. So I'll put my parchment paper back on top, and I'm going to iron on this side. I'm not going to spend as much time because it is already adhered. I just kind of want to double check. Okay. So again, you want it to cool down. Okay. So now you have this wonderful this wonderful piece of patchwork fabric that we are going to peel off of the HeatnBond. Here we go. And now it's basically like a gigantic sticker. So when you use HeatnBond, the adhesive is actually a layer on this piece of plastic here. So this piece of plastic will, you need to reuse it because it's just not good for the earth. It's just a piece of plastic, and when you buy the 5-yard roll of HeatnBond, you will be left with 5 yards of this. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reuse this. You can paint on it, you can glue on it, you can use it to protect your surface. I use it for a lot of things before I actually toss it away. And if you come on my channel, you will see me using it in various ways. Okay, so now what you want to do is, if you cut your HeatnBond too big, you'll actually find that there is glue off to the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel that off with my fingers. And I usually try and make the HeatnBond almost the same size as the fabric, but sometimes it's a little bit hard. This is usually as close as I get. Anyways, now we want to adhere this to a piece of paper. So the piece of paper I'm going to use, you could use a lot of different pieces of paper. You can use tissue paper. Now let me tell you the issue with tissue paper. The issue with tissue. So the issue with that is that, excuse me. The issue with using tissue paper is that if some of your fabrics are really see-through, like this right here, this, the tissue paper, if you cover a book with it and say the book is red, the tissue paper will not be enough to kind of cover that color up. So I use what's called packing paper. So packing paper is just what it sounds like. It's paper that you use like in between dishes. You cover up glass things with it. That's what it is. It is packing paper. And it comes in this grayish white, like off-white color. And it's thicker than tissue paper. So that way it's not, so your fabric is not see-through. Basically is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I'm gonna adhere the shiny part of the fabric here, the wrong side of the fabric. I'm going to adhere it to this packing paper, and the packing paper is the same either side, so it doesn't matter. And then again, I'm going to cover it up with my parchment paper because I do have those little edges of glue around that I don't want to get on my iron or my heating pad, or my ironing pad I should say. And basically we are going to again melt the glue. And this time we're going to adhere our fabric to the paper. So right now there's no plastic behind this, so you can move your iron around. So that's just a little tip. Again, you don't want it to be on the same spot for too long because you might burn it. Now once you kind of got it a little bit adhered, you actually want to get on the back of it. You want to iron it from the back because that's where the glue is, right? So to get the best adhesion, you actually want to iron on the back to really melt that glue. And this is pretty much the last step in this whole process before you get to sewing, right? Sewing in all your little stitches. That is a fun part. This was kind of the hard work to get there. But I just really love the look of the patchwork fabric. So I really don't even mind making it. I might even consider making my own actual patchwork quilt one day. That might be one of my goals. Because it just looks so pretty as fabric, and I think I would love it like on my bed or as a blanket. I think it would be beautiful. And of course I keep buying fabric, so that's got to happen. And of course, like the last step, once the glue adheres, you can start to really see your fabric. You start to really see your fabric on the back of it. And that means that your glue is all melted. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done here. So now what's left to do is to cut this piece of patchwork, that's now a piece of paper, out of here. And you can get going on your stitches. I just stitch in between. There's really no magic, no magic to this. Just stitch all in between. And this is what it looks like on the back. And it's a lot of fun. I have this sample piece right here that I kind of did stitches on to kind of figure out which ones I liked and which ones I didn't, because some just didn't really translate to trying to be a quilt. And I wrote the sizes on here and the number that goes according to my sewing machine. But really, honestly I like zigzag, and so zigzag and this like little Frankenstein stitch. I like this little honeycomb stitch a lot. Pretty much I stick to like 3 designs. I stick to like 3 different designs. This little Frankenstein stitch I love. So you guys, I hope that kind of clarified a little bit on how I make this patchwork fabric. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and let me know what you guys think. I know I'm not the fastest at explaining this, so I hope y'all still enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for checking out my channel. If you do like long process videos and junk journal with me type videos, please do subscribe. I pretty much post a new video every single day. Thank you guys so much. Bye.